Unfortunately, there are conservatively about 10,000 puppy mills in this country.
Producing
about 4 to 5 million dogs a year, which is conveniently about the number of dogs being euthanized in shelters every year.
Right, exactly. So if we took them out of the equation,
right.
we would have the dogs in the shelters that could find homes and
That's
not be pushed out by these puppy mills. Because one of the unfortunate parts of this cycle is that you have the puppy mill producing the dog,
right.
Then it goes out, somebody doesn't want it, can't take care of it, so brings it to the shelter.
That's
and
right.
so these poor dogs start in the puppy mill and end up in the shelter anyway.
That's right.
And that's just completely unnecessary.
And lest we forget, most shelters are funded by taxpayers. So we're paying for the euthanasia of all of these healthy adoptable animals
right.
that we don't have to be paying for.
Mm-hmm.
I can guarantee that most people in this country would argue that there are better uses for that money.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that most people would agree, too, that this practice is completely unacceptable and must stop.
Right. What we do know from all of the consumer research we've done in our campaign is that when consumers become aware of the realities of puppy mills, what goes on in puppy mills, they are appalled by it, they don't want to support it. But unfortunately, the industry has become very savvy about duping consumers into believing that their dogs are all coming from these beautiful home environments when in fact they're coming from puppy mills.
So tell me about how some of the ways that they try to dupe the consumer.
Well, for example, this past weekend, I was in a number of pet stores for an investigation that we're currently working on, and asked the pet store owners a number of questions about the dogs. Where do you get the dogs from? What kind of places are they like? You know, what do you think of the breeder? And you are always told that they are wonderful, home-raised, responsible, USDA licensed breeders. You know, they're great. I know them personally. Just complete nonsense.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is, they don't know the breeders. A pet store in, say, you know, New York is not flying out to Missouri
right.
to check out the breeder operation
right.
that they're buying dogs from. No, they're putting in an order, and that order is delivered to them.
Right, right. By a plane that they pick up at JFK.
A plane, it's delivered by truck. I mean, it's just a horrible process. The puppy pipeline, which is what we call it, from start to finish, is incredibly inhumane.
Well, speaking of incredibly humane, can you tell me a little bit about debarking?
You know, debarking is one of those things that we do not agree with. It is something that is frequently used by puppy mill operators to silence the dogs on their properties. And it's not done in a way that is acceptable to any veterinarian.
Well, I understand they take a pipe and they shove it down its throat and crush its voice box.
Correct.
With no anesthesia.
Correct.
And also, not to mention no antibiotic to help it when they've cut the
right.
tissue and it's getting infected, there's no antibiotic. And so this animal, even after it happens with the incredible pain, then has to live with the incredible pain of the healing process.
Right. It's an incredibly inhumane medical procedure. If it's done appropriately by a veterinarian, it can be okay.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, more often than not, we find that debarking is a practice that is common to puppy mill operators.
Right. Well, and it's done so that the dogs won't draw attention to the fact
right.
that these people have a puppy mill going on.
Right, because even if you live out in the country away from a lot of people, if you have 300 dogs barking on your property,
sure.
someone driving by is going to hear that.
Absolutely.
And that's what they're trying to prevent. I mean, the medical... One of the things that we like to say in our campaign is that puppy mill operators, to save money, like to play doctor.
Right, right.
They like to practice medicine without a medical license. Debarking is one of those procedures that they like to do. Another one that we see frequently are puppy mill operators performing their own C-sections without anesthesia and whatnot.
Oh my God.
It's hard to even imagine,
right.
but these are things that they do, and they do it so that they can increase their profits as much as possible.
Right. Keep it quiet, keep them coming,
right.
you know?
Exactly.
Even if they have to cut them out themselves.
That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, for a puppy mill operator, if we're talking about a puppy mill operator doing their own C-section, it is worth more to them financially to cut open that mother dog and take the puppies out and just leave the mother dog to bleed to death.
Sure.
Because the puppies are what's financial, what's making the money.
Well, I understand that too, that a lot of the dogs, once they can't breed anymore, or maybe they get sick, or even have fleas, for instance, the owner will just take them and shoot them because it's less expensive and easier to just shoot them in the backyard than to pay for medical attention to help with their fleas, which is something that is so simple.
Absolutely, and that's something that's very common. You know, what we normally tell people when we're asked that question, what happens to the dogs after they can't breed them anymore, is we say that they're discarded.
Okay, which is a gentle term for thrown in the trash, basically.
Right. They're either left on the side of the road, dropped off at a shelter, they're killed in inhumane manners. I mean, gunshots, unfortunately, that's on the scale,
that's
one of the more humane ways that a dog can be killed. It's certainly not something we advocate.
Of course.
It's not an appropriate method of euthanasia, but it's quick.
Well, exactly. The animal doesn't suffer like it would if it was cut open and left to bleed.
Right. One of the frequent ways, unfortunately, that we see puppy millers putting to death puppies that aren't perfect, that they're not going to be able to sell for as much money as that they had hoped, is drowning. And that's an incredibly difficult way to die.
Yeah, the level of suffering is very high.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to animals in this country, we are responsible for so much animal suffering. For everything from puppy mill dogs to birds to exotic animals to the animals that we consume. We expose these animals to a huge amount of unnecessary suffering. And unfortunately, all of the industries that are involved in this suffering do everything they can to hide that reality from consumers.
Exactly, and that's exactly what my mission is. And I don't want to be like a, point your fingers kind of person. I just want to say, hey, listen, these are the facts. This is what's going on in our country. I want to help you open your eyes to this so that when you can make a decision, I can either support this or I cannot support this.
Right.
And I think most people, when they hear this, say, oh my God, I don't want anything to do with this. How do I stop this?
Right.
So how do we stop this?
The way to stop it is by not doing anything that encourages
the industry.
The industry. So when we're talking about puppies, it means don't buy puppy mill dogs. Puppy mill dogs are sold in pet stores, no matter what the pet store owner tells you. Puppy mill dogs are sold in pet stores, over the internet, and at flea markets, or in parking lots or side of the road. Exactly.
Now, is there something we can do on a legislative level, like, maybe write to a congressman, or is there a department in particular that we can say, let's, send our feelings, let's send our ideas to these people? Who would that be? In
this country, the USDA is responsible for enforcement of the Animal Welfare Act.
Okay.
That's the archaic act that does, at this time, protect puppy mill dogs to some degree.
Okay.
With that said, we do need better laws in this country. So the best thing that people can do is to write to their federal lawmakers and express their concern for this issue and let federal lawmakers know that they care about this issue and want them to do something substantial about it. It doesn't mean you can't write to your state lawmakers, because quite frankly, state lawmakers are likely to do something faster on this issue than they can at the federal level. Exactly.
Right.
Or, you know what, we work at the state, federal, and local levels of government. Okay. You can go to your town council member and say, I want to ban the sale of dogs in pet stores in this county.
So
Let's do it.
That sounds like something that is so simple.
It is very simple, and there is a trend across the country banning the sale of dogs in pet stores because they are coming from puppy mills. In fact, the city of LA in California, one of the biggest cities in this country, has banned the sale of dogs in pet stores. If LA can do it, some of these smaller localities throughout the country can do it too.
Well, so goes California, goes the country, right? That's
absolutely.
What they say. So
absolutely.
That's wonderful news. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything that maybe you think we didn't touch on that people should really know?
You know, one thing that I do really want people to understand is that when a breeder or a pet store owner or someone selling a dog at a flea market tells you we are USDA certified, AKC registered, it does not mean anything.
Right.
That is a piece of paper. As much as the AKC likes to say we inspect, we care about dogs, in just the past about 5 years, they've opposed more than 90 laws that we've tried to pass at the state and local level to increase the standards of care for dogs in facilities across the country. Now, you would think the AKC would be supportive of that. After all, they term themselves the dog's champion.
And that's the American Kennel Club, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But they do anything but. And the reason is because they profit financially for each dog that is registered with the AKC. And they allow puppy mill produced dogs to register with the AKC.
Okay.
So that's their constituency now. More than 80% of the registrations with the AKC come from puppy mill bred dogs. That's why they fight us on every piece of legislation that we try and pass to make conditions better for dogs in these commercial facilities.
I didn't know that, and I know that most of my friends don't know that, and so I'm so glad that you shared that with me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important. And, you know, they oppose not just puppy mill specific laws, but one of the things that I think shocked me the most was a law about 2 years ago in Tennessee that was proposed by a local county that would criminalize keeping dogs in cars on hot days. We all know you don't do that because the chances of the dog dying are so high.
Yeah, especially in Tennessee where it's hot.
Very hot.
Yeah.
The AKC opposed that law.
I know, we're both stunned. It's like, what do you say? What do you
They
say?
oppose that law.
Mm-hmm.
It's
What was their reasoning?
Well, their reasoning is because sometimes show dog breeders keep their dogs in cars. Well, no show dog breeder is going to keep their dog in a car for any extended period of time where the dog is going to be suffering.
Right.
It is just silly.
Well, because those dogs are their lives.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So that is what I mean when I say that the AKC consistently takes positions against animal welfare when that is exactly what they claim to be pushing for.
Right, right. Well, and that brings up kind of a question in the sense that, like, if a puppy mill owner wants to make profit from these dogs, then why doesn't he take better care of them? I guess it doesn't matter how they're delivered, correct? Just so they are delivered.
Right. I mean, I can't tell you how many consumers call us on a daily basis that just picked up their puppy mill dog that they didn't know was a puppy mill dog, of course, from the airport that they bought on the internet, and the dog is just covered in dirt and feces and has parvo.
Right.
It's just a matter of
So-
making the sale.
Okay, so yeah, they don't care about the conditions. Because, I mean, you would think,
No.
well, like a good breeder does. You know, they want their dogs
Right.
to be healthy so that people will come back and buy again and, you know, whatever.
And
So
absolutely.
economically, it doesn't make sense to torture these animals and have them in bad condition because it's bad for business. So why wouldn't they want to take better care of them?
Well, unfortunately, the puppy mill industry is behind this black curtain. So people don't see what goes on in these facilities because they're not transparent about it, because they know that if consumers really saw what was happening, they wouldn't be buying these dogs. So once the dogs get to the pet stores or you know, to the flea markets, then they're clean and look fine on the outside.
Right.
But you don't know what kind of illnesses they have on the inside.
Right. Melanie, thank you so much for your time.
Glad
This
to
was
be
really
here.
informative, and I'm so glad that you were here to educate me about all this and educate so that I can now educate my friends and other people, and we can put a stop to this thing that absolutely must be stopped.
Absolutely, that's how it's done.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.